Hello everyone, how are you doing? This is Daryl Guberman, CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. My background is aerospace, medical implants, medical materials, printing, and plastic distribution, where we dealt with every industry under the sun. Today we are going to be doing, yes, on Alaska Air. I'm sure people have been hearing it on the radio, TV, etc., the news about Boeing and its slipshod quality. I think they were getting some of their parts that have quality issues from Spirit Aero Systems. We have a lot of problems in quality, and I'm going to show you how pervasive it is. This video today is QA expert Daryl Guberman alerts Alaska Airlines and passengers about Boeing being FAA regulator 2009 to present. You can't make this up. When I tell you this, it's going to be about 10 minutes long, and I would suggest if you're flying on these aircraft, you should say a little bit of a prayer first, because you will see from 2002 to present, if you purchase the aircraft Alaska Air, you got to check with Boeing. You can't even check with them because they are the regulator, you're going to find out, since 2009. It's disgusting. We have two special guests here. We have David Calhoun, who was on board in 2009 when the FAA came in and gave some of the employees FAA authority, which means for their commercial airline group, which meant he became an administrator as soon as he became the CEO, I think in 2018. You have this guy over here, Mr. Kirkland, or Donald Kirkland Donald, whatever. He's watching over the 737 program. But let me get into this, because this is going to be an extensive, but it's not extensive. I'm trying to siphon down 40 years of disgusting display of quality out of control. And I will say this as well. Thomas Paine said this: when speaking the truth, it is many times like administering medication to the dead. You have A.A. Milne, who wrote a child's book, Winnie the Pooh. He said, it is easier to believe a lie that one has heard 1,000 times than to believe a fact no one has heard before. And the best one that I've come across is from David Foster Wallace, that said, the truth will set you free, but not until it is finished with you. Do you hear me, Mr. Calhoun and Mr. Donald Kirkland, or Kirkland Donald? We have the truth. What they have is pasting over this mess. And they've been pasting over for 22 years, ladies and gentlemen. Alaska Air, this is the problem. But I can tell, and this is a fact, this would be a fact. If you go into the airport and you say, that jet engine's going to fall off at 10,000 feet, and you have documented proof, 95% of those people getting on the plane would poo-poo it. And then the engine falls off, and you know what happens. So this goes to Alaska Air. ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, is a private, not-for-profit, non-governmental corporation that has both federal agencies and corporations on its board. In 2015, you have a Mr. Randy Doherty, who was vice president of ANAB and the chairman. And by the way, ANAB is the American National Crediting Board. And at that time, it was called ANSI ASQ National Accrediting Board, American National Standards Institute, American Society for Quality. They owned ANAB 50/50. So he was ANAB vice president. He was also the chairman and principal on the IAF tax report, which is the International Accreditation Forum is incorporated in Delaware. It is a repository for both national and international accreditation bodies. You have Zhao Zhenwu that he handed over leadership to. This is a communist Chinese national. At the same time he was issued the chairmanship of the IF, he was also the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services Incorporated, or wherever in Beijing, China. He is mandated by his country of origin, with Xi Jinping leading the charge, to take our data through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. You have him over here in Wuhan, China, issuing a certificate for laboratory accreditation as the China National Accreditation Services, as the China National Accreditation Services, chief executive, and and he was also the IF chairman. He is a CNAS, or China National Accreditation Services, is equivalent in accreditation to ANAB and ANSI. ANSI and ANAB, and remember this, are underwriters for the China National Accreditation Services, and they're underwriters for any accreditation body that sits on the IAF Incorporated in Delaware. You have also a Miss Pamela Sale at the same time, who was the Vice President of Quality for a laboratory down in Texas, state under deposition. And this is where the whole thing, this was the Bio-Level 4 lab that released the COVID virus. And you will find, without a doubt, when she confessed to it, the Vice President said, the Vice President Pamela Sale said of ANSI ANAB said, and I quote, "From one laboratory to another, there are variances. They lack protocol." You have ANAB that sits on ANSI's board. You have the factor that in 2018, ANSI took over complete control over ANAB, and also they sat on the IAF, the International Accreditation Forum, when the Communist Chinese national Zhao Xinwu was watching over as chairman between 2015 and 21. The worst thing that I find, and very distasteful as a proud American Jewish business leader, is that you have the factor of Iran and Pakistan, and I don't say this about the people, I say this about the leaders. These organizations, Iran and Pakistan, these countries are equivalent in accreditation to ANAP. You will hear on the Boeing supplier portal very shortly that they will accept ANSI, ANAP, or internationally equivalent. So here they are sitting there. You have Osama bin Laden in Pakistan, they harbored him. He's dead, of course. And then you have Khomeini, who says death to America, and he's financing freaking Hamas. And you have an American company, ANSI, ANAP, and the leader of ANSI is Joe Batia. What is that saying about the CEO? It's saying that he should be fired, because I guess they're condoning the factor that, number one, Iran and Pakistan are sitting on an American company, on American soil. What is that telling us? You also have this. You have 7 different registrars. You have the factor of Intertech Registrar certifying Spirit Aero Systems that supply parts to Boeing, and we heard their quality is kind of slipshod. Now we get on to Boeing. Here's Boeing, and this is most important, Alaska Air, its management personnel, and also the passengers that fly on there. In 2002, Boeing put out a supplier notification, July 1st, 2002. For 22 years, this has been taking place. It's basically stating, over here that when they say survey, it's audit. They didn't want to do audits anymore. Send out, it costs money. And these guys won't get a bonus. So they basically took an ANSI ANAB certification. ANSI ANAB were their inspection, basically. And you send us, basically, the certification, which is an international standards organization, or International Organization of Standards certificate, AS 9100 for all of aerospace. And you just send us this. And then you send us your part, and we don't have to send any inspection. That's basically what this says. It will be down in the description. You'll have that information. If you click on it and you have a problem, I have a hard copy. I'll mail it directly. My email is Daryl, Daryl, TQRS @yahoo.com. My phone number is 203-556-1493. And here goes the rest of the resistance. The FAA gave FAA authority to some of the Boeing employees, while David Calhoun sat on the board in 2009. So he eventually became the administrator of the FAA, or maybe he was, because in 2018, when Dennis Muhlenberg and the Ethiopian and Malaysian Air thing happened, he became the CEO. So he was wearing the cap of the FAA as an administrator. And you can see in the first sentence, the FAA increased the authority of Boeing's commercial airline division to self-certify its own aircraft. Self-certify sounds like authority was given to Boeing. So you will hear David Calhoun state on interviews that, yes, our regulatory authority, but the FAA, they're not. They're equivalent. They're equivalent per this article here. You have Boeing that sits on ANSI's board over by their accreditation body. This came right off their supplier portal. And it's ANSI ANAP or internationally equivalent. You find out the internationally equivalent could be, as I showed you, Iran and Pakistan. You can't make this up. This is the most important part for you as well, Alaska Air and all the airlines that are being given this type of video, is you have this. Boeing fudged documentation on jet airliners. And I personally never found out what parts or components. Maybe they found out, oh, it was okay, it wasn't a problem. But they did it because they were a regulator of the FAA. They had regulatory authority. They could sign it off. Let me just tell you what sign off means. By them giving them FAA approval, so you have FAA and FAA, they're in a conundrum, a bad conundrum, because the FAA is impotent. They are impotent, and Boeing is impotent. So we're in a quandary. That's why I'm doing these videos. Basically, what the FAA did by giving them authority, sign-off authority, that means that I can design the plane, I can get the materials, make the plane, fly the plane, and sign off the plane. That's an easy way to say it, but that's basically what's happening. You have the FAA sitting over by Boeing. And one of the craziest things that I most recently read is that they're going to get the National Transportation Safety Board out to investigate Boeing. How in good God's name can they do that when you have, it's part of the U.S. Department of Transportation. They sit there and the FAA sits there. So you have regulatory authorities that are impotent who gave regulatory authority to the manufacturer, Boeing. What the hell is going on here? The same issues that's happening here is happening in medical. Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, all sit on ANSI's board by the FDA, CDC, USDA, NIH, etc. They're doing the same thing. Pfizer got caught skipping processes and quality standards. They had to get their COVID vaccine returned. Johnson & Johnson, 75 million vials of COVID got returned. You can't make this up, ladies and gentlemen. I don't do this. You don't know me, and I don't know you. But I will tell you this. Integrity, honesty, and the truth. And I'm going to say this again by David Foster Wallace. The truth will set you free, but not until it is finished with you. I hope you're listening, Alaska Air. From 2002 to present, you should go back and pester David Calhoun and get quality records. They fudge everything else. You don't even know if you have a proper aluminum or titanium or plastics within the confines of the aircraft you're flying. 203-556-1493 or Daryl, TQRS @yahoo.com. I thank you.